What's up guys, it's Mehdi from Embasa. Welcome back. Today we are going to create FastAPI file upload. As you can see from here, at the first we are going to create FastAPI structure files, something like database structure, models, repository, routes, and static and template file for our HTML. And the second thing actually is to work with CRUD operations, something like post, update, or delete. And what we need else, we need to create a SQLite database actually, and we will want to save file path and file name in database, and from this path file we can upload or delete or insert any file in our project. And the second thing actually is here we are going to work with Jinja 2 for template file as a default, as like Django or Flask. And at the end, it's too important to work with statics files, something like custom CSS, JS, and font or image, something else. But in this tutorial, I just work with Bootstrap file, and I have just some simple CSS custom file style. Now let's just start from here, from command line. I'm going to create a directory by typing here. For example, I name it FastAPI upload, and now from here I open cd at the first, of course, FastAPI upload, and open Visual Studio Code. Okay, great. Now looks great. The first things is too important to create virtual environment from terminal, new terminal, and by typing Python 3 -m bnb, and I give it the same name. Now as you can see, it's created from here, from left side. And now source, if you're using Windows, the name of your virtual environment, and then script active, but in my case just source bnb being active. Now the first thing is to install some dependency by type pip install, for example, FastAPI. Okay, now the second from here, first I need to update my pip repository. Okay, now the second thing is to work with pip install, for example, UV-core. UV-core should be something like web server to allow us to run Python code in web, something like Nginx on some other web servers. And UV-core. Okay, great. Now from here I'm going to create our first file, Python file. I name it main.py. You can change it to route or something else. Actually should be our main files. And now just import FastAPI, import UV-core, and now from FastAPI import FastAPI. The second is to create the instance from FastAPI class, just by doing fast, just I give an app name and then FastAPI. Now to run our project and have some simple tests, I create the endpoint by typing app dot, for example, get, and create this first method. I give def, for example, main or root or some other stuff or something else what you want, or root or something else. Now what we need to do, we need to return a just simple message. And our message should be welcome to FastAPI. Okay, now it's time to run our project. As you can see, I have already installed this dependency or this package manager from UV-core. Now to work with the UV core, we need to add it from constructor just by typing if name, for example, equals main. Now we can say UV core dot run our project, and it's pretty simple, and we don't need to do something else, but from here just we need to call this file from left side. Our file is the name of our file is main, and the instance of FastAPI class is app. And if you want, you can insert port, something like that. You can change the port or something else, what you want, but as a default, I think it's 8000. I want to keep that. And let's do first. Let's start our project by typing python main.py. Okay, now as you can see, UV core run on port 8000. Now if I run our project, message should be welcome to FastAPI, and from docs we can see our fast get method, actually endpoint method. Okay, great. The next step, I'm going to create our structure from FastAPI from left side. I need database folder or directory, and the second directory should be models, and routes as well. Of course we need some other stuff, something like static for our CSS, JavaScript, or image or something else. And the second should be template. Templates. And what we need else, maybe we need a controller to do for our CRUD, something like post method or something else. And this should be handler. You can write controller, or you can write repository, but it's completely depend to you which name you want to use. But as this documentation with FastAPI is something like repository, we want to keep this name. Okay, the next step to create our database, SQLite database, I create db.py. Now I can just copy paste this code, of course. I think it is SQLite FastAPI, something like this. Okay, now from here, if we open that, the first step to install dependency package manager SQLite, just copy and stop our project. Okay, now as you can see, it's successfully installed. And the next step, I just want to copy paste all the stuff from here to our project. Okay, great. We don't need this line, because if you want to work with PostgreSQL, you can use this line code. Now as you can see, we have this should be the path of SQLite, and this is the name of SQLite database, and we are going to create engine. If you want to work with, if you don't want to have something like this stuff, for example, you want to save SQL Alchemy database URI or password, sometimes some other stuff in env file, you can just create that env, something like that, and save our variable here and call it from here from database. But you need to install env python. And the next step, As you can see, we are creating a new engine. It actually is the instance from engine class from this connection URI, and the base class should be, we will use it to create our tables before we run our project, or before we are going to do some CRUD stuff, something's insert or something else. We need to create a database, create the tables at the first. Okay, now I close this. The second step, I'm going to start from models. I give it a name, file.py, and now what we need to do, I'm going to create our class just by what we need to do at the first. Just type in by class. For example, I give it file class model, file model class, and should be inherited from base. And what is this base? This base coming from, okay, it's coming from database, and from database.db import base, and this base is the instance from our engine. Okay, now the next step is to define the table name. If you don't define a table name as a default, take this name, take the class name for our table. But if you want to have a different name for your class, different name from class and table, you can just type in from here, for example, table name, and for example should be file model. But if you don't write this line code, at default take this the name of our model. And the next step is to create the ID, our first field. From column, we need to, of course, we need to add it from SQL Alchemy. I'm going to import, we need column, of course, we need integer for ID, and we need a string for path, file path, and file name. Now from here, from column, just create the first column, and type should be integer, primary key should be true, and of course index should be true as well. Now I need to change this name. I have, for example, file name, and null should be false. We don't want to have an empty fields from here. And the second as the same, should be path. We are going to save file name and file path in SQLite. And the second step is, you should not to do that, but it's more clean code, and it's help you if you have more fields to know which constructor you have. You can create a constructor just by typing int. Now we don't need to return something else. File name, and of course file path. And now now from here, self.filename should be file name, and file path self.filepath should be file path. Okay, great. Now I'm going to format my code. As you can see, it's not working because I don't have any AutoPip 8. I'm going to install it from here. Okay, now I can format my code. Great, now we have our model, we have the database. The next step is to config database and models from main.py. Now let's come back from here. Before at all, I'm going to, from here, for example, config db or database or SQLite Database. To do that, we need to bind our file, and let me to show you how we can create a table. To do that, just from file, from models, just import file. Now from here I can say the file base and the data create all and bind to engine, and this engine is coming from database. That means from database.db import engine. Okay, great. And the next is actually this line code help us before we run our project or before we are going to do any CRUD, create our table. We can create this table anywhere else, but this time, for example, we can do something like that. And what we need else, and let's to run our project, and I hope we can see if anything's worked correctly. Okay, now as you can see, we have some errors from here. The type base has not attribute metadata. Not create metadata dot create all should be. Okay, great. Now as you can see, our program is running successfully and we have our database, SQLite Database here. But now let's open our database just from here, OpenDB, and now from dev, FastAPI upload, I think, and now SQLite file model. Now we have two fields, file name, file path. Okay, great. The next step is to create first route. Before actually I'm going to create repository, CRUD and route endpoint, because I need to let me to copy paste just static and template file, because I don't want to create or write any HTML code now at this time. I already have a template. I just want to copy paste static file, CSS, HTML, and template file should be just one index HTML file. To do that, let me define that upload, and now from FastAPI static, I have just CSS file, and I have all copy and download from Bootstrap website. You can download our files, and this is just simple custom style file, and just change some color actually. And I write this code that you can see we can write our custom CSL as well. And now the second is template. I just want to insert this template file. If you are working with more template, it's better to create a base file to hold our stuff from here and from here, and this part should be as an index file or as a something else, or for example for content, for contact us on some other stuff. But I have just one page, I don't want to do something else. Or we can do that by typing base.html. we can write this and copy, for example, this part to base, something like that, and of course this body as well. Just, and now from here until body, and this script as well, something like that. But what we need to do, of course, if we are going to open Jinja 2 documentation, basic, or just template designer. Okay, I don't have a great internet, of course. Okay, you can see we are going to create this file, this template file, and we are going to work with some stuff, some command and some other stuff. But what we need a content or base content. Just to do that, give me content. Okay, as you can see, black or end black, something like this, or black footer. You can give a name as well, what you want, just black. And for any part of here you can create this, but I give, for example, body, and everything's coming inside these two parts. That means now just we have just from here body, and now from here we don't need anything else. That should be our index.html file, something like this. But as I said, I don't want to have this some stuff, something like this. This is just a simple file, and let me to continue with just simple HTML file. Okay, now I'm going to open our project, and should be written at this time is written this style, this endpoint, get this endpoint. We want to change this endpoint to our website. To do that, we need to, before we continue, we need to configure our HTML template and the static file. Now just from here, from main, just I'm going to config static and templates file. To do that, just it's pretty simple. What we need to do, from app, I create the instance app.mount for our statics file. I define the name of the statics, should be path of statics path, and now it's coming to a statics file. Of course, we need to add it from FastAPI, just from FastAPI dot statics file, import a statics file. Okay, great. Now I can say statics file and should be directory, and directory is the name of our directory. If you want to change another name, you must be sure you have a same name here. Here, as you can see, I have a static, and now I should say the directory's name is static. And of course HTML should be true, and the name of our file again is static. Okay, great. That was actually our statics file. The second is to define templates. I'm going to create or define templates variable, and this template is coming from Jinja 2. We need to install Jinja, and Jinja 2 pay. Now as you can see from here you can open this structure and some beauty documentation. Okay, now stop our project and pip install Jinja 2 as well. Okay, now I can say from FastAPI dot templating import Jinja 2 template. Now I can say Jinja 2 template. As the same way from here statics file, we need to define a directory. Just type in directory should be the name of this directory, as you can see from left side. Templates. Okay, great. Actually looks beauty, and we don't need to do something else at this time. Let's come back to our routes. We are going to create our first route. As you can see from here, I allow to have access to this get method from app, but if I create a file here, for example, for our route, I don't have access to app.pay, and I don't want to create the instance from app here as well, something like this. To do that, we can do something else from FastAPI import just we need to import, that was I think API router, but not the phone. Okay, now yes. Okay, great. Now as well as the same way like here, we need to create the instance from API router. For example, I give a name upload router should be API router. And if you need a prefix or something else, as you can see from here, we are allowed to define a prefix, and we are allowed to define some dependency. If you open this class, you can see all methods, for example, all property. You can define a route, or as prefix is too important, or create a tags, but I don't want to have a prefix here. And the next step, prefix actually is like this. When you define a prefix, so for example, you can say upload, and then is coming other stuff. Now the second step is to add this route to main.pay. We need to say this app should be connected to actually upload router. We need to call this upload router from here. Just config routes, And as well, we need to just to add it, just we can say app dot include router should be the name of our instance from API router. I need to add it from routes import that file import upload router. Just add it here. Okay, upload router. The next step, I just want to copy this line code from here because I don't want to have route endpoint route here inside main.py. Now from here, just going to say file router, and we need to add request and request from request. And now this time just we can create a context. Something is like Django. If you have already worked with Django, I'm sure you know this structure. For example, context, you can create some object, something like this, and you can say, for example, request should be our request, and what we need to return at this time just this. And now I can just say return templates. We need to call these templates as well. We need to have this instance, something like that, and of course we need this line code as well. Now just the name, the instance of Jinja2 templates dot templates response return to this index file. As you can see, template is here, but I forgot to, you need to have a backslash sorry here as well. And just then after the templates is coming base or HTML, I am going to call this HTML file now index.html and context. Okay, great. Now let's test our first example. Now if I open my project, okay, server error, we can see what's wrong. No route exists name static and parm path, static and parm path. I'm sure static, I have a same name. Okay, I have write something's wrong here, static. And again, if I run this project, you can see we are going to run our beauty or simple file upload HTML file from here, from template, and actually looks great. Now from, as you can see, let me to open this. As you can see from endpoint, from this endpoint get, I'm redirect or template response to index.html. The next step is to create post. We want to post, actually after select the file, we need to have two different methods. I'm going to create two methods from repository file. The one method should be save file inside here, inside directory, and the second method should be save the path, the name of this file and path of this directory to database. That means we need two different methods. Okay, great. Now let's create repository from here. From here, create file .py, and now from here, just at the first create our router and upload router .post def, for example, insert or something else, the name that you want, you are allowed to choose, and request and of course I need something like this. I can just copy paste this line code. Now that means after insert we want to redirect user to the same page. We don't want to redirect or response user to another page. Okay, now is the time to create the two methods. The first method to save file inside directory, and the second method to save file name and file path inside database. Now I'm going from here. Just simple, we are going to start to create our file upload. Actually, it should be the creative file. As you can see from here, I just want to do some beauty things. I just want to create a file, and the name of the file should be the name, or it should be the date of today. That means for every day when the user today upload a file, should be create a folder or directory with the date of today, and then we want to upload this file. Let me to show you how we can create just simple path directory. Just tab create path file, something like this, and now data now equals now. What is this now? Actually, we need to get the time, we need to get current date, or just we need to get now. To do that is just simple. We need to work with from date time import date time, and the other things just import OS for path, I think. Now I can just easily create the instance from date now. I give it a name. The now should be date time that now. Okay, now is the second step is to save now the str time, the structure of the name, the date. How would you like to have to get date? For example, at the first is coming the years, and the second is come month, and now is the day. Something like this. 200. Sorry, I forgot. For example, with dot, we can spread something like this. Okay, that should be actually the name. I get this date and I will use this date to name of our directory. And path, for example, file, and under file, as a default, we are going to create a file folder, and under file come this date plus date now. And now we have a path. Before we are create a path, we must be sure is not exist. To do that is pretty easy, and we can say is exist equals os.path dot exist. What's exist? This path. Yeah, should be this path is not already exist. Now if not is exist, then create this file path os.mcardier's just path name, the path address, and at the end we want to return this path because we need this path to save our file upload inside this file. Okay, great. Now what we need else, okay, now it's time to create the methods to upload our file. To do that, just again create the file and name it upload file, and what we need to get, we need to, as a parameter, we need to get a file. We need from here, as you can see, file upload type file. We need to get this file. To do that, from route, just I'm going to add some other stuff. To be sure, you choose the same name that you have here. As you can see, the name is file. Then from here I create a file, and I can say file upload file. Of course we need to add it, upload file equals form. When we use this name, when we are going to say form, should be coming from form, and that it's that actually just form. And this is just simple structure. Okay, great. And maybe it's not great, we have some errors. I've already, I don't know, maybe I delete some, oh sorry, here is double quotation. Okay, now we can call this file from here, upload file. I can say, when I call this endpoint, I want to call this method, and as a parameter I give this file name, and from here I want to return list of the name or list of the file name. And now, for example, list name last list name, and what I need to do, list name okay, sorry, this upload file, as you can see, is coming from here, from repository file. I need to add it. I can say from repository.file, or just from repository import file as controller or as repo. Now I can say repo.upload file, or I think we don't need to add the model class from here. We can work with this file as well, but repo is more cleaner or more understandable. And at the end we need to return these contacts. Actually looks good. And what we need is we don't need anything else. Now come back here. I get this file. Okay. And now just try, and we are going to create our directory. From here, create path file. I get this path file. This path is coming to here, and now I can say contents file. This file is coming from HTML from request, our index request, to here. This file, we are allowed to get two things from this file. The first thing is, I can show you file that some stuff, some important things. This file, that file name, and the second is type, content type. Content type is two importance. For example, if you want to upload just PDF, or just if you want to upload just the image or XML or some other stuff on some other type, you can check it from here. You can say type equals content type from here, then you can check from here if type, and then do some stuff, and then you are allowed to upload file. You don't need to write extends or extra methods to control it or to check it. You can use just this content type. If I coming back, content type Firefox. Now you can find from here, I think, how Mozilla, if you need to get these names, you can see this file type can be audio, for example, application, XML, image, and you can work with more types, GIF and zip file or EPU. Actually, I have already worked with some files here from some type file, something like audio or PDF, and something else. You can use it as well if you need to check. If you don't need, you don't need to do some things like this. Okay, now get a file from file. Now going to read this file, of course. Now the second is the path, to define a path to save this directory. I say directory plus file dot file name. Okay, great. And the second is to read this file is just with open file just which to open file in this path, and now write and read as f. Now f can create an instance of this file, f.write contents, this file that we have already read. Now we define a path, and then we say create an instance and write it here. And that's it, except if we have exception, we can just simply return our exception message. For example, there was an error to uploading the file. We can define finally file close. Okay, great. Now as you can see, now we are allowed to upload file inside this directory. And this, before we are continue, let me to test this before we are save this file as well inside database, because from here, from this method, just we want to save our file inside directory, and we need some other stuff to insert the name of this file and this path inside database. But now it should be work. If I open it and from here submit, and some error method not allowed, make it some more better. Let's come back. We are going to read this file, and we are return this file to index. We have post method and not method load, just of course we are not allowed to call this method, because from here, from index file, I get this name. It's looking for this file name from database, and it's not possible to find that. And because I don't want to get a file name from here, let me to complete this line code. Just from here, I create a new file as well for our database. File model, that was the name of our model, and it should coming from models file import file model. And now as you can see, we are already created constructor and help us to understand what file we need. File name, the file name should be the file name, file name, and the file path should be this path. Actually, should be this directory, this path plus the name of this file should be our path. And now we have instance from file method. and file model. It's time to insert this new file inside database. And before we insert this file inside database SQLite, we must to be sure some things like this. We must to be sure if the file is not exist. We have already do that for our directory, and we need to do that as well for our databases too. If you are not worried, it's depend to your project. It's not important. You don't need to check it if this file exists. You can just insert it. But to do that, I just going to say file exist. We need to add session. Okay, this session should be, we need to create an instance, of course, from session, from database, just from SQL.orm import session. Now create an instance from session file. Just type create session equals session bind to engine. This engine is coming from SQL, from database.db import engine. What we need else to define expire, on time should be false. Okay, now we have this session. We can say that actually this session, we can do some other stuff. Some programmer use this session inside data model. Some programmer use this session inside here after to connect for every endpoint. They call this session, or you can use this session inside here. Actually, what I have already forgot to tell you, as you can see here, some programmer define actually here inside as a parameter. That means plus here. They are going to add this session and call session from here. It's not any different actually. It depends to you where you want to call this database session, because from here just I get this information endpoint and then I'm trying to connect the database. Okay, and what's I wanted to say, as you can see we don't have any schema. If you want, you are allowed to define a schema file to do what for what. For example, here I can get this file path from schema if you want. If actually at this time I didn't create any schema because I have just one file. But if you have big project, for example, you need to read all information from user name, last name, age, and some other things. You can write all stuff here. I'm sure you should be more. That should be more. And looks not great actually. But it's better to create a schema and define all files inside a schema from, for example, here. You can call all methods from here. And let's come back. And from here, now we have session. Okay. We have session. We have already created the instance from session. And we are going to create our first query inside file model .id. and that filter file path should be path. That means we are going to return boolean true or false. We give the path, this path, and inside we have file path here. As you can see, file path. We are going to say if this file path inside database equals this path, that means this file is exist, and return true, of course. Now, okay. Now I can just say if file, if not, for example, file exists. If it's not exist, then it's pretty easy. Just session dot add new instance, and session dot commit, and of course at the end session dot close. Else, if this file exists, I don't want to do some things more, just return or just print to understand exist. Great. And at the end, after I insert this file, I want to get this file, I want to return this file, and let me create another method, for example for fetch, and def fetch all, just from here return session.query from file model.all. Okay, great. Now I can say after that I just want to return this file, and now from here we can say we have just fetch file. Just let me get this name, for example list name, fetch all, and just list name, return if any file exists. And now it looks great. Let us to test it. Just let me to stop here our project again, run. Okay, we need to install Python multipart. Okay, now multipart, what we can to do else pip freeze all inside requirement dot txt, that you can see if you are later you need to know which dependency you need to install. And yes, now run this project again, open project, select file, for example, and submit. Okay, great. As you can see, we are create our file and we are return the file name inside HTML file. automatically we are create a file with the date of today, the subdirectory, the date of today. If I try tomorrow, insert a file, of course create a new file with the date of time of tomorrow, and inside under this directory add this file. And let me come back. Actually we didn't define any content type. That means I allow to insert any file, but let me try to add the same name or same path name. Okay, again, now as you can see here, exist is coming, and it's not should add it here inside file directory. Of course should not be worked here as well. Just 3, 2, 1, 3. As you can see, we are going to save file path and file name. Actually looks great. Now the next step is to delete actually file. Again we need two different methods. The first method should be remove or delete the file from directory, and the second need to remove raw from SQLite, because we are save the file inside two different way. We are going to save file inside directory and the file name and file path inside database. To do that and to create delete, I'm going to create new router. Just upload router delete. It's going to create ID, get ID, and where is coming this ID? As you can see from here, I list all path name or file name. Now as you can see, if after fetch all, after get this file, I have access to list name, and from this list name I can say I need to get a file name, or I need to get a file ID or file path. Yes, completely easy. And now d.id, from here I'm going to call this endpoint. Okay, now def delete item, I name it, for example, delete item, get the ID, and type should be int. And the next, just again we need to define two methods, two different methods. One method to delete item from directory, just delete delete path file, yes, let me because we need to get this file path, I can first create another method. After delete from database, we are going to delete from here, just delete item, or delete from database, delete from directory. Just to do that, get an ID, delete item, and from here delete item, and it's coming from, of course, repo. delete item, parameter is id, I give this id. And after that, for example, I'm going to return JSON. As you can see, I have written some more different way to show you are allowed to work with some stuff, some packages that it's pretty, and it's great to know. Actually, it's great to work from. For example, FastAPI represents so more from response, import JSON response, Now just define a status code, for example 200, it's successful, and content should be message item deleted. Okay, great. Now let's come back here just to delete a file. Of course, we need to check if this file exists, or if we need actually to catch this file before at all. I give item object equals session dot query and file model dot filter, just file model dot id equal this id is coming from response with HTML file dot first. Okay, great. Now if item object exists, okay, just pretty easy, session dot delete item object, session dot committed, or you can use session refresh if you want to get a refresh database, and at the end you can close this tab. And now is the time. After delete file from database, I just want to delete from here, from directory as well. I can say, for example, os.remove for example file path, and this file path is coming from object, because inside database we are saved this path, we can get this path. Okay, now actually after delete this, I think it's not everything should be access to this file path, because we are closed database, but your create object instance should be work. Okay, now accept OS error as if, just print or return to see this error. Error. You can work with this beauty structure. I have for 10 years I worked with this structure with C#. Actually, I define some beauty stuff. Now file path and e dot just treats error. Oh, sorry. what's wrong here? I don't have access to E. Oh no. Error. And after delete file, else if file not exist, just rise. That was the 4 different return file. Actually, we are working with just simple return, we are working with print, we are working with JSON response, and now I can show you some other things. HTTP. Now let me to add it from here, from FastAPI import HTTP exception and status. Try to work with this status. Actually, if you are using FastAPI, I think is the great, actually, as useful. Now rise HTTP exception status code should be a status that HTTP 400 not found, for example, and details should be file or record, or this file not record file with ID just not found. Okay, now again stop. Actually, if you don't want every time stop and start your project to reload this code, just type reload true. Is pretty important. Actually, it's pretty good because I have always need to stop and run my project every times. If I do reload true, you can be sure you have synchronized, you have access to your, you get some fresh code. Delete. Okay, now to delete that, let me to this times check another things. For example, from here, let me to delete, for example, file 1, call this method item deleted. As you can see from here, deleted as well, and should be here deleted as well. And if I try to go to delete it from docs, should be worked as well. I try to delete file 3, as you can see is deleted as well. From here, item deleted, and now deleted as well. Okay, great. And now I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and should be helpful for you, and bye, see you.